Welcome to another episode of Coco and Teal Speech Therapy. I'm Teal, this is Coco. Childhood apraxia of speech, or CAS, is a motor movement disorder with neurological origins. What's happening behind the scenes and in the brain of a speaker with CAS is that the thought or the word, the concept, exists already in the speaker's brain, and when that thought or word is sent as a neurological impulse to their mouth to actually move their lips, move their jaw, move their tongue, all the things needed to even produce a single sound, let alone a word or a sentence, there's an interruption in that path, and the message doesn't reach our muscles. This image of the speech chain is one of my favorite ways to visually describe what is going on in the process that I just described. So on the left, you can see the speaker's brain, and if you follow the line going down out of the brain, we see that message, if we want to say, these French fries are good, we might have that thought, and as it travels down our motor neurons to actually move our mouth to make those sounds, to say those words, there's an interruption. Childhood apraxia of speech is diagnosed by a speech-language pathologist, or SLP, like me. Typically, we can't diagnose childhood apraxia of speech before the age of 3, so we would call it suspected childhood apraxia of speech. In order to make a formal diagnosis, we actually need a little bit more language than a 3-year-old is typically able to provide, especially one who has apraxia of speech. It's a paradox. So typically, kids are maybe diagnosed at 6 or 7 years old when they are using some more complex language. But there are many red flags that I can use to identify kids who I think will later be diagnosed with apraxia of speech. Kids with CAS are almost always described as having been very quiet babies. These are babies that don't babble a lot and aren't exploring sounds. When they start trying to communicate, there's usually an excessive use of one lax vowel, like and they use this sound for everything that they want. These kids are almost always late to say their first words, but receptive language skills are unaffected, so they're able to understand, listen, and follow directions really well compared to what they're able to actually say. These kids are often really smart because they're understanding everything that's being said around them. They simply can't move their mouth to make words as easily on their own. Imitation can be very difficult for these kids, and a lot of times I see that they are kids who've already begun to avoid language situations. There's typically a pause or even a groping motion that we can perceive when these kids are thinking about the word that they're trying to say and trying to figure out how to make their muscles obey their brain. So look for this groping or a pause of concentration while these kids are trying to talk. That can be a hallmark sign. Inconsistent speech errors, being able to produce the sound correctly in one word and not in another, or atypical speech sound productions can both be red flags for this diagnosis. A lot of parents of children with CAS will report what I call pop-out words, these words that we hear once and then never again. This video is not a diagnostic tool. If you have concerns about your child's speech or language development in any area, I recommend working with an early intervention agency who can hook you up with a speech therapist like myself to see exactly what is going on in your child's particular case. Thank you for watching this episode of Coco and Teal Speech Therapy. See you next week.